Do you know that your attitude towards money and risk shape the way that you invest? What are your thoughts about money investing? Do you believe that money is good, or do you believe that money is dangerous and evil? Are the only people who are getting rich are those who have ripped people off, or is building wealth a fair outcome for hard work, skill and diligence? Is investing just a way for the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer? Or can anyone have a go? Depending on your answers to these questions will likely determine if you can become a master of money or money will become a master of you.
I'd flip through catalogs and wonder what kind of dining set defines me as a person. I had it all.
When it comes to property investing, most property investors believe in a buy and hold philosophy. They believe that if they hold it long enough, it's going to go up in value. Now this is hoping rather than actually using any investing skill or system. These investors are speculators. They're investing based on a held belief, usually acquired from their parents as part of their growing up or whoever brought them up when they were a kid. And it works off the simple mantra that they'll simply go out there, buy a property, and if they hold it long enough, everything will work out fine. The speculator's approach to investing is step one. They acquire assets, believing that their asset generates the profit. They're aggressive about getting into the market, and once they own them, they're passive about managing them. Step two, they hope for profit. Speculating means hoping for a desired outcome and speaks to a lack of skill or system. For example, investors can only profit when the broader market around them that they're investing in goes up in value. So while they choose to be part of the market, they cannot influence it. Step three, they set and forget. Due to a lack of desire or skill, speculators prefer a passive approach of buying and holding and hoping. Step four, they apply strategy. Strategy is an afterthought and something only applied when things start to go wrong, instead of forethought as part of strategic planning and due diligence. So you see, speculators lack strategy and control, and their approach to investing is essentially just like gambling. This speculator approach can be seen when we look at a recent survey carried out by the government on the private landlord sector, which is made up of 2.8 million private landlords, where we can see that almost half of them have only one investment property in the UK. And a further 39% own between 2 and 4 rental properties. This leaves us with only 18% of landlords owning 5 or more properties in the UK. Most people want to get into property investing to become financially independent. I know that was one of the driving reasons for me. And you have to ask yourself, how many properties do you think you need to have to become financially independent? And you might think that maybe 1 can do it, maybe 2, maybe 3, or maybe 4. So 4 properties could work out for you. It could be that, yes, you repay the debt over the next 25 to 35 years. It's taking you, maybe 5 years to acquire 4 properties if you're really great about saving your deposits, or maybe it was 10 years that it's taking you to accumulate those 4 properties, and therefore it's going to take you 25 to 35 years to totally repay those debts. That's if you did it that way. A lot of people advise that you should just do interest-only payments on buy-to-let mortgages, and therefore you're never eroding the debt. You're just hoping for inflation to erode that debt over a period of time. But at the end of the 25 years on that mortgage, you're still going to owe £100,000. In 25 years, 100 grand isn't going to be the same as what it's worth today. But ultimately, you've still got to pay it off. You've got 4 properties, that's 400 grand that you might have to pay, because you've not been paying it off at all. You've been taking the income and subsidising your current income, but it hasn't been enough to actually make you financially free. Instead, you might have been better off by repaying that debt so that in 25 years, you've got 4 properties debt-free, therefore each one's generating you, say, £1,000, £2,000, £3,000 a month. Therefore, that ultimate amount of money could potentially make you financially independent, but in 25 to 35 years' time. But that would rely on you not taking any income out of these properties for 25 to 35 years. And, is that really what you want to do? We all have different financial needs, and as investors who want to improve our skill and ultimately our levels of sophistication, we need to use a different approach than the traditional approach that has been served up before us, which is ultimately a flawed model. Now, I call this approach strategic, and this is based on outcome-driven investing. It works in the opposite way that most traditional buy-to-let investors may look at, which is they look at the asset first and make a decision based on the asset. What this way looks at is it looks at the financial outcome first and then decides whether that's something that they want to achieve. So let's say that you wanted to achieve £3,000 per month. You would then only be looking at assets that would deliver on that financial outcome. But before I get into that, let's back it up a bit, because what I want you to do is to be able to fully understand what your financial independent figure is. Now, to work this out, you've got to go and look at all of your expenses, your monthly expenses. Add up all your monthly expenses, everything that's on there, go and look at your statements and work it out. And then also, what are your annual expenses that you have that's a one-off thing per year? Tally all of those up, divide that number by 12 and add that to your monthly expenses. Now you've got your monthly figure that you need to work towards to become financially independent. So if that all adds up to $3,000 a month that you need as your living expenses, that's what you need to acquire from your property investments. So that number now is your financial independent amount. So memorize that, put it up on the wall, set it as your goal, put it everywhere to remind you that that's what you're working towards. Now, a way to fast track that is to look at all of your consumer debts. Now, consumer debt is your bad debt. You don't want consumer debt. Ultimately, you're paying a lot more interest on consumer debt than you would be able to achieve through your property investments, or you're investing in anything, shares, whatever. So what your first priorities needs to be is that you pay off all of your consumer debt, because paying off that consumer debt incurs a monthly cost associated with it. Once you've paid off that consumer debt, you're then going to be saving yourself hundreds of pounds per month in expenses that you no longer have to find. You no longer have to find that money. So therefore, you've already reduced your financial independent figure by the amount of consumer debt that you've removed from it in the point, as in the monthly payment that you have to pay on your consumer debt. So let's say your consumer debt all added up to £500 per month. You can now take £500 off of your £3,000 per month, and now your financial independent figure is £2,500 per month. Already you're getting closer to your financial independent figure. To fast track this, you want to make sure that you don't take on any more consumer debt. You just pay all that off, and then once you've paid that off, then you can start on the outcome-based financial investing model. And we've all made mistakes with consumer debt, including myself. I've bought doodads in the past, that I really didn't need, that have taken capital away from my deposits. If I'd have invested that money into property sooner, or bought more properties sooner, I would have been able to achieve my financial independence goal earlier, and therefore had more choices of what I did in my time earlier in my life. So these are the things that you really need to understand: where you're spending your money. Do you really need it? Can you delay that gratification for a period of time, and therefore put that money towards your investing pot so you can spend it on outcome-driven investments? Because ultimately, the old traditional model of speculating and buying, holding properties for 20 or 30 years while you're working, 5 days to get 2 days off, swapping your time for money, ultimately, do you want to wait 20, 30 years before you can then even enjoy the fruits of your labor, the fruits of your investing? Maybe you've achieved the 4 properties, but you've got to wait 30 years before you can actually become financially independent, and you're probably into your pension years anyway by that time. The biggest problem most investors have is that they struggle to save up for the deposits. They will do well and get the first one together and then be able to buy the first property, but then it's the second, the third, the fourth. How do you get to save up all these deposits? It's going to take you the same amount of time that it took for the first one, maybe, and then other things get in the way. You might get married, you might have kids, all these other things come in the way that then start to take that money out of your bank account. And therefore, you need a way to be able to keep generating these deposits. And this is why I recommend using an outcome-driven approach where you're actually using your seed deposit monies that enables you to then scale up your property portfolio over time using the same seed money that you've got. Now, this approach can be applicable to residential and commercial property. It doesn't just work with residential, it doesn't just work with commercial. You can apply the same concept to both investment vehicles. You look for inefficiencies in the market and you'll provide a solution that capitalizes on those inefficiencies that will allow you to add value to that property in a relatively short, condensed period of time. For example, with residential property, you want to find unmodernised property that you can then add value to by adding more in perceived value than it's actually cost you. And you'll be looking to add value in ways that is going to actually meet the demand of the market. So the local tenants will be falling over themselves to ultimately get access to this property and hand in their application forms to you. As you add value to that property, you'll be able to refinance that property down the track as well. And therefore, by refinancing that property, you can then pull money out of that property, and it's that money that you pull out of it you can then use as a deposit to go again on your next investment property. Now, I explained this whole concept in my program called Property Accelerator, and there's a link to that in the description. Now, this also works with commercial property, and here we're going to be exploiting inefficiencies in the commercial property market. Now, there's multiple ways you can add value to commercial property. You can add value to commercial property simply by placing a tenant in a vacant property, for example, because commercial properties are valued based on the income that they generate, more than just the land and the actual size of the property. Location does matter, but ultimately, if that property is generating a certain amount of money, that determines what the price is, the value of that property, because other investors will buy it based on the amount of income it will generate. Other ways that you can generate money with commercial property is again to convert it to residential. As long as you're buying it at the right price per square foot, your conversion amount is another amount per square foot, and the two of those together is going to be less than the perceived value that it's going to be perceived by the valuer when he comes around and assesses it, that you've made that capital uplift in a short amount of time again. Similar to how we do it with residential property, but this is for commercial, and with commercial property you can still refinance property and get another commercial mortgage, and with that money that you get paid back out from the refinance, it's the same principle again. You can take that, buy another commercial property or buy a residential property, whatever you want, but you've got your deposit or 80% of your deposit ready to go for the next one. So it's going to take you a lot less time to save for deposits because you've got a way to scale and buy profitable property, whether it's residential or commercial. If you're interested in commercial property, I'd like to invite you to join my waitlist on commercial property investing, where I'm going to be doing a 2-day workshop, part of a 6-week program, where you'll get access to me for 2 days live, and then for a 6-week follow-up after that, we'll be analysing deals and going through all the different property investing questions and answers that will come up after the workshop. So at the moment, it's just a wait list, and that will be a 2-day live workshop that I'm going to be announcing the dates for soon. So the waitlist will be in the description in this video. So the traits that an outcome-driven investor have are: they create rather than buy profits. They plan their profits before buying. They put in place a prepared risk assessment and mitigation plan for the things that could go wrong. They buy on facts and pay more when they should. They're active managers by regularly assessing their portfolio's performance. Not necessarily manage their investments, but manage their team to get the best outcomes. To do this, we want to ask ourselves, instead of can I do something, how can I do something? And this way we remove the personal constraints around us, ourselves doing something, into how can I do this? And think beyond just yourself to deliver the ultimate solution. So strategic outcome-driven investors will follow these steps. Step 1, they'll identify their end goal. Step 2, they'll identify their desired profit outcome. Step 3, they research and perform due diligence. Little is left to chance. Means that there's more chance of them achieving their desired outcome. Step 4, they go and buy properties. This is the first thing that speculators do, whereas for outcome-driven investors, this is the fourth thing that they will do. Step 5, they apply a strategy. Instead of holding and hoping, they will look to increase their income and capital appreciation by adding value to that property. Step 6, they actively manage their property portfolio. They steer the investment towards the best possible outcome instead of hoping it will happen by itself. So if you made it this far, I'd like to reward you by giving you an opportunity to join the Property Investing Wealth community. This is where I hang out. Other property investors are in there. This is where you can get your questions answered, and we'll be sharing different information about where we are on our property investing journey, what's working, what's not working. There'll be free resources in there, and you'll also get access to events when I schedule them that are going to be just for people that are inside the community. The link to the community is going to be down in the description, so go and check that out, and I can't wait to see you inside. Thanks very much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.